keep on generating questions for this paper as we turn to our next exciting paper from, we have Kateryna Odarchenko from Faculty of Social Science and Humanities, South Ukrainian National Pedagogical University, on the impact of the Russian military Gerasimov doctrine on the course and results of elections in European countries.
Thank you so much. Thank you to audience, conference organizers, Jennifer, of course, and to Jerry about this very interesting and insightful research on Russian Orthodox Church. A little bit about my background. I'm originally from Ukraine, so before full-scale invasion, I lived in Ukraine, I work in Ukraine, and basically my university where I'm now writing PhD, it's Odessa, which now I'm under ceasefire, and I came here because my father was on Russian killing list and sanctioned list of Russian Duma, so that's why now I do my research here. And so I do research and I practice in communications and political management, so some part of my presentations will be very practical to show you how these doctrines originally work and how Russia originally used their models and messages in sharing these messages in Russia, in Ukraine, in European Union, and also partly in the United States. So if possible, I will take like 15-20 minutes for presentation, and then I think it's more interesting to have Q&A about this issue. Sorry for my accent, I still work on that. So this person, not most handsome guy on my point of view, is Mr. Gerasimov, and what you need to know about him and about his doctrine, that he as military leader proposed very innovative type of like hybrid war. So he said that war must be on different like forms, so of course classical war, but also it must be some soft powers of influence. So that's why if we connect like his doctrine with work on Wagner Group, with their work in Africa, with their work inside, with their work with Russian Orthodox Church, you can see that basically Putin understands Gerasimov as a very innovative person who connect like modern technology with Soviet Union, KGB type of work, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, they're pretty effective in this work, and our research shows that. Also, if we talk, IT issues. If we talk, so first of all, we must fix that Gerasimov doctrine, which publicly published in Russian media, in Russian official documents, it's a point basically on hybrid war and what tools officially Russia use on hybrid war. They said it that it's their like national positions, that it's their like messages inside country, but basically we understand that it's hybrid war. So you can see here budget from a source of Moscow Times, but also its official budget, how much they spent in billions of rubles to mass media. So as you see, basically Gerasimov said that we can continue war and they have problems with mobilization if we will do also ideological work. And here a very good example that they originally accept this doctrine as basic doctrine, and how much more they spend only officially to mass media, which directly dotate from a Russian budget. But one more time, it's only official money. We not now count money of oligarchs who also support some private media initiatives. So here we said only about government budget, but also some other oligarch or person organizations like Wagner Group, they also have their private budget to the same type of tools and of work. Also, if we talk about main tools of propaganda or main informational tools, it's of course Novosti, Russia Today, Channel 1, public television in Russia, Ostankino. So it's also like a part how much money they use to their basically basic TV channels. And you know, I have experience once of taking part in such TV show. It's, for me, it was interesting as a researcher how it's work, you know, and they use all modern practices of communication, you know, so they do message boxes, they organize opinion leaders, they organize fake sociological research, and they use, they do totally due deal about you and your psychotype, and then they use that to form only one opinion. And originally, success of Solovyov and other people who main media influencers, you can see, and you can see also the same tool when they do information campaign after interview with Tucker Carlson. So it's from yeah. So also here we can see main points when Russia originally started this like modern Gerasimov doctrine, and one more time they use this doctrine not only in Russia but also they before use this doctrine in Donbass, so where originally war started when they take Donbass and Crimea, and also in Syria. In explanation of Russian foreign policy, for example, in Syria. So I can give you also very practical example. So in a lot of international media was messages that Putin supports, like war in Syria. But Putin said that, of course, it's like United States and it's imperialism of United States, and we only help people in Syria. So the same message and the same tools of the Gerasimov doctrine they use on Donbass. So they said that they support Russian-speaking people on Donbass, and they keep peace there. So they just bring safe and security to Russian-speaking people. And it's one more like connection between this idea of Ruski Mir, that all people who talk Russian or who go to Russian Orthodox Church, it's part of Ruski Mir, and they need support and defense from Russia and from big patriarch like Putin as figure of, big patriarch. So Gerasimov, of course, use some sources. So for his doctrine, so he in all his interviews said that he strategies like Sun Tzu and like Karl von Clausewitz. So he always says that his doctrine, it's not like his idea, but it's like very long research of type of winning wars. And I think it's also a type of selling this idea to Putin, because it must have some basis, but it's resources to which directly Gerasimov always connect his doctrine. And he also mentioned psychological operations. So you can know this as NLP tools or some other communication tools which I used to. And basically on all the TV channels, TV shows, they also use tools which you can call NLP tools or other communication tool, which I think helps them to gather more and more budget to this issue, because as you see also Russians pay a lot money, and we can go to some journalists also work how they try to do in Western countries the same. Also we can say that they invest so much money only officially to Gerasimov doctrine, and they organize it as doctrine, but how can we resist to that? Originally I work a lot with Congress, and some people here in Congress said that they very effective in propaganda, So I have some also in my research examples how Ukraine successfully have resistance against that. And the main point of resistance start from originally 2000 1992, so before Orange Revolution. So then main messages was economical messages. As you know, Ukraine must trade with Russia because it was Soviet Union, and economically it's mutual part of like trade union, so on and so forth. But after Gerasimov presents this doctrine, they start only to set about Ruski Mir, about Russian war. That originally Kiev Rus, it wasn't in Kiev, it's Rus, so it's Russia, and which like insane because Kievska Rus was in Kiev. So yeah, but anyway, it's one part of message. Second message that Russian speaking people always have pressure in Ukraine. I'm from Kherson originally, so I basically in my childhood speak Russian. I know very good Ukrainian. I write all my papers on Ukrainian, but basically I'm a good example of person who grew up in Russian-speaking town in southern Ukraine. And nobody never abused me that I use Ukrainian or Russian in different region. But main message with Gerasimov also said that they do deep fakes about Ukrainians who use Russian language, and they was beaten by nationalists. So Gerasimov doctrine originally very good work after 2014, and it also was connected with political forces whom take direct money from Putin. For example, Mr. Medvedchuk, who was leader of oppositional bloc, he originally relative with Putin. They always use the same message box in their political parties and on their TV channels. So one more time, I don't do any accusations, but a lot of research of Ukrainian Secret Service, American Secret Service, and sanction to all these people show that they originally connect to Russian money, and they use Gerasimov doctrine also in their political work, plus to form their influencers. But mostly people in Ukraine anyway vote for integration to European Union, to integration to NATO, and now it's more than 80% of people support moving to European Union and to NATO. So it's pretty tremendous answer to your question, is it fully work in Ukraine? And other examples in my research is originally anti-Gerasimov doctrine campaigns in different countries where Russian try to work with influencers and try to use this doctrine with trolls in the internet and so on and so forth. And it's of course Czech Republic, where Petr Pavel originally won, and he was classical, military pro-Western candidate. And who interested, I'm really encourage you to research last election in Czech Republic, because second candidate who was supported and who publicly support cooperation with Russia, he also was originally oligarch and big magnate who owned media, but Petr Pavel, with his message, can defeat also this Gerasimov doctrine tools. So we also see in Poland. Russian try to use message that nobody respect Ukrainian refugees, that it's no sense to give additional economical opportunities to Ukrainian, but it's also not work and not work on the elections. Moldova, of course, so to Moldova, they have the same message box and tools work in Ukrainian, Georgia and Moldova. So, and in Moldova, it's also not work because Maya Sandu is very pro-Western candidate, and mostly people understand what, Russian doctrines came with. And also some other examples. So I want to do accent in my research that they still practice their doctrine as concept model and the same tools in every elections now in European Union, because as you understand, people who was elected in countries to local parliament, they also then elected to European Parliament, which main decision making. And now they very actively work in Italy and Germany, and we see that also trolls and bots in internet support far right and far left doctrines. So it doesn't mean sometimes that they directly give money to political forces, but it's give to them opportunity to form also negative and protest understanding in society, and they try to do the same in United States. As you see, a lot of research like from Harvard, Stanford, you see research on troll campaign on the last elections, and as we see, like trolls who was basic in Russia and work in United States, they support any far left and any far left idea here. So they use the same tools. But when you understand tools, of course, you can defeat them and research them. So, of course, we show in our research that the main tool is, of course, Russia Today. So Russia Today, it's like Inoveshchanie, like foreign channel of Russia, and I still surprised that it's working mostly hotels like in Western countries. And some Western politicians connect with them and give comments to them. So also components of Russian influence, and which we research from Gerasimov doctrine, it's cultural, anti-globalistic, and political and economic, like in the message box. Also main topics of disinformation. It was now it became Israel-Hamas war, but before it's Ukrainian failures on battlefields. So Russians show to their own voters and to voters outside that Ukraine failed on battlefield, and Ukraine unable to defeat Russia, but before they have message that they will take Ukraine for 2 days. So that anti-Russian sanctions don't work, that Russian economy is growing for local voters, and also a lot of disinformation on Ukrainian and Russian language, which analyzed here. It's also president candidacy in United States, that some candidates support Putin and want to cooperate with Russia. So it's also part, very interesting, it's also part of their message boxes. Of course, I want to last 2 minutes use to show how they physically visualize this method. So, of course, like now, one of the main messages of Putin is like conservative values. And we see some research also on this conference, campaigns against LGBTQ community. So obviously, like Russian Orthodox Church use the same message box, and they use in all political campaigns. And originally they try to move this far, it's not conservative, it's like far, some right ideas, to also foreign countries, for example, to European Union. And before war, LGBTQ like deep fakes was one of the main tool of Russian disinformation campaign, and obviously they supported by Russian Orthodox Church. But it's also interesting that it's a lot of violation of religious freedoms, because, for example, Baptist evangelists, originally Putin's supporters said that it's sectas, so it's like not official, the same I can see, like I can show to you fakes, how they use it in social media, also deep fakes about Zaluzhny. So now with IE it's a little easier to do and to share in, and they have a lot of troll farms which originally still work. I will share this presentation, and I also have YouTube channel when I analyze every deepfake. Also they use as classical like communication tool. They use also children's in their deepfakes and propaganda, and deepfakes about children on occupied territory. And about IE and about deepfakes, one more time, they also, like in other countries before elections, they try to do fake news about Zelensky and use that also before elections in Western countries. Also fakes about students and other examples of like Russian disinformation. I also can answer to your question, but main issue that Russians try to use all modern technologies like i.e. Facebook, like internet campaign, but basically they now move that new war, it's not only war on battlefield, it's also like war for mind, so hybrid war, and the main leader of that is of course Gerasimov, and Gerasimov doctrine as like basic doctrine as they use now for their campaign. So thank you so much for your attention to this issue, and Slava Ukraini.
Thank you so much. Why don't we take, just like we did with the previous paper, let's take 10-15 minutes for just questions devoted to this paper, and then we can open up to general questions.
I have a question. So speaking of the Clausewitz, so I know that, I believe that one quote is from Clausewitz is that war is politics by another means, but this seems like by any and all means. So knowing this, how is the repertoire defined, and where are the fronts in this hybrid war?
For Gerasimov, I think that his all connection with basics, it's only like originally selling connection to sell it to Putin. So I think basically it's haven't like, ideological idea. So obviously they also said about Machiavelli's ideas and its fit to Putin type of, but basically it's also an important issue. It's all about money. So a lot of these people, they haven't like deep ideological idea even to Russian world. They just like money. Like Wagner Group, they also do organize firstly their organization, not because they believe in Gerasimov doctrine, but because they take a lot of money from Russian budget, and I hope that this statement of Putin will be based on lawsuits against Russia in future, because he directly said on one that he give money. But one more time, I'm not sure that Gerasimov originally used these positions as really basic positions. I think he organized that because he also have subcontractors and subcontractors who take all these billions to organize this campaign in Russia, but much more money to organize this campaign in other countries. And it's billions, and we see a lot of investigation, for example, how they try to cooperate with Western influencers, journalists, and even with some members of European Parliament to push it. So I think it's also interesting issue, which, for example, a lot of research said that, in Western Ukraine, people support Russia because they vote for pro-Russian political forces. But no, essence was different, because Russia pay in their messages nostalgia for Soviet Union, and they give money to voters. So originally it's not ideological basis, it was basis of organizing like campaign. So I think with Gerasimov, and we will see it when Putin will die or this will change, that all these people will fight for money. So that's why I think that all their ideological like basics, it's only facade, it's only like picture to sell it, but not really ideological position. I think the same with Russian Orthodox Church. So I'm not sure that they believe what they. Yeah. I believe in God, but I think that all these people have like nothing. Yeah.
And so along that lines,
Yeah.
on like the actual ideological underpinnings, when you're talking about the interference, especially in European elections
Yes.
and U.S. elections as well to a certain extent, but what do you see as Putin's goal? Is he actually supporting particular candidates, or is it just sowing chaos and dissension within those countries? Is that enough, or do you see what is the ultimate goal?
Oh, I do a lot of research on disinformation campaigns in Europe. So sometimes I think it's three goals. So first goal is to do general understanding that democratic model is bad model. For example, with cooperation with Orban. So they said that just democratic model is bad model, and they show not only Russia, they show, for example, some like Arabic countries which like have nothing to compare in tradition, but they said that look, democratic model, it's about like LGBTQ rights, and we can build strong economy without democratic like style. But we see that the most developed economy, it's basically parliamentary like type of governance. But so first it's like discreditate democracy. Second, it's to move far right and far left idea to organize destabilization in country, and they do the same with COVID. So they said that, oh, it's all like fakes from American pharmaceutical corporations, right? And I think that they can cooperate with these messages blast you in some way with China Communist Party, because you remember. And third, sometimes they support direct political force, like Alternative for Germany. So they originally have meetings with Russian official, and they originally have messages officially that they support like cooperation with Russia. So I one more time be in academical discussion, so I can say that they take direct money from that, but I can in our research and in our research previously on disinformation patterns, we can see direct connection with Russian disinformation pattern which start to move in Russia for inner voter, and how they use the same patterns in Western communication. Yeah, and of course and one more time, fourth issue, now it's connected with war. They try to discreditate Ukraine and Ukrainian refugees. For example, I have video when I explain deep fake, they organize lady and they said that this lady is refugee, and it was fire and building, and she organizes fire and she not communicate with anybody. It was deep fake, but a lot of people like view that. So it's also discreditation of Ukraine. And one more time, war longer and longer, and they became more and more effective in that because of economical problem even in Germany. So and so on and so forth. So I think it's these four goals.
Thank you.
Yes, I will be shortly. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You mentioned, as sort of a brief aside, that recently a lot of Russian disinformation campaigns have pivoted towards the Israel-Hamas conflict. I'm curious what the reasoning behind this is, what the substance of that disinformation looks like. I'm just wondering if you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's one more time, main point of the Gerasimov doctrine, it's anti-globalistic issues. So they said that the United States as empire support Israel, and Israel killed Muslim people, and then it's message. So I have Jewish heritage, I have my position on that. But anyway, after that, they also said that, look, our Muslim population inside country, look that United States support Israel and Israel do wrong thing. So these disinformation messages have some messages for Chechens, for example, for Muslim people in Russia, and some messages which connect that United States have wrong foreign policy and United States start wars everywhere. So it's very, this pattern which they use in disinformation from 2002, that United States, its empire, who start war everywhere to buy raw materials. So it's basic pattern which they use, and Israeli-Hamas war they also use. And now also, like part of their disinformation campaign, it's message that United States haven't enough money to support Israel and Ukraine. So, yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
so, have you researched the role of Vyacheslav Surkov in the Gerasimov doctrine as a maybe not just influencer but original author when he under a pseudonym wrote non-fiction sci-fi novel, Dubovitsky, I think his pen name was, and he described future war as these shape-shifting simultaneously alliances and use of weaponization of basically everything from information to refugees. And Vyacheslav Surkov, the great cardinal, do you think his role is bigger than is spoken about now, and still big? Gerasimov, you look at Gerasimov's face, and this is just personal, it's hard for me to think that he's a man who came up with this brilliant, successful military doctrine, that he is helping remove an original author from. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes. It's anthropological discussion about leadership, but yes, I completely agree. So Gerasimov started his doctrine, which connects mostly about war. So he said that, look, we use classical tools of war, which like Soviet Union tools of war. I'm not expert in military and defense issues, so like in weapons and other stuff. But we also must do hybrid war. So it's basically Gerasimov part of responsibility. But Surkov, it's person who do ideological narratives all the time. So he mainly like campaign manager of, so obviously he do message box, like in campaign management, so message box for inner and foreign policy, but which connect more with, I can check that it's also public, with diplomacy issues, but not with war. So Gerasimov basically presents this doctrine for war, for defense issues, and Surkov obviously does it for many, many years as ideological and message box and I don't know consulting issues, and his architecture of main patterns. Because one more time, Gerasimov, he said about tools. In his doctrine, it's a lot about tools, but patterns he accepts. Obviously, it's very good point from you. Obviously, from other people who create that. And originally in Russia, you can work with Putin or you can go from country. So if you're political scientist or political consultant, you can go for power, or you can die, or you can go abroad. So that's why, like now, all people work for this system. Then their kids live in Miami, Florida. But anyway, like yes, last.
I think you cited something called Human Rights Platform when you were talking about the Russian news and the topics that were being covered in it, and disinformation. I'm wondering,
Russia
what
Today?
is Human Rights Platform, or what's your citation for that? What is being covered in the Russian news? Do you have any preferred sources that follow disinformation in the Russian news that we could probably follow ourselves?
Mainly Russian do the disinformation. So like when Surkov architect that, it's go to main TV channels of Russia. So it's main. So when you see like changing in Russian message boxing, you see it firstly on Russian TV channels. About people who monitor it, so I mentioned like our work of our institute and Odessa National Pedagogical Institute, and also non-profit Institute for Democracy and Development, Polita, which 501c3 here in United States. But a lot, Deutsche Welle do a lot of like, I think they have grant for analyzing of disinformation, and also very good research of Atlantic Council Disinformation Lab. They also do research on all patterns in Western press. So it's big research. It's called Atlantic Council Research Disinformation Lab, and you also can refer it. But one more time, the same tools, but messages a little different. So. Do we have time or no?
I was going to say, we've got 15 minutes left, so I want to kind of open up to any questions for either one of our speakers.
So,
And why don't, maybe I should be the
Yes.
one taking the
Yes,
questions
yes,
so
yes,
that
yes.
we make sure we get it. So you want to have a seat?
yes, thank you so
Yeah.
much. Thank you so much for your attention.
Okay. Thank you. All right, can you put your hands back up again? So let's start here. Two.
So I had a question for you about, you talk about deep fakes in your presentation a little bit. Could you just talk about what, if any, good methods we have to combat deep fakes?
Yeah, originally now we work with some American colleagues on handbook of fighting with deep fakes on elections in Europe. So, like we still not finish it, but our theory for now that you must do handbook how it originally worked, because it's interesting also for educated people. It's like with tricks in circle like when magician do that. When you understand, it's like not interesting. So it's little handbook how generally disinformation work, what is main patterns, and then work with education of journalists in these countries to see these like patterns for their countries. And then we assume that intellectual people and also originally pro-European political forces will take this like research, and then they will move also this to more bigger informational campaign. Secondly, it's big discussion how people must understand source and so on and so forth. But basically, why it's work in Russia? Because in Russia, they, for example, buy some articles on, I don't know, website which called London Guardian News, which website which originally created, I don't know, in Russia. So some fake site. But then they said London press said that, I don't know, like Zelensky corruptioner. And person from Russian village, they originally said, oh, London press said that. So, and work with this audience, it's very hard, even in Europe. Yeah.
Could I just interject
Yes,
something?
sure.
I have a sort of polemical point. We're in the state of Ohio. Our conservative Republican senator, J.D. Vance, has repeated these deep fake stuff a couple of times. It's absolutely offensive. He's talking about lack of religious freedom in Ukraine, which is phenomenally stupid compared to the religious, propaganda and all the problems in Russia. And exactly this thing you just mentioned. He's repeated this stuff, as have about 5 or 6 other senators in the United States. So this is extremely serious in the United States information sphere. So we ought to take it seriously. So good job. Yeah.
No, we're still working on that, so if you want volunteers, so let's do it together. Additional 5 hours of work. Yeah.
So it seems like, to my understanding, Putin has been trying to build a strong alliance with other countries that adopt fascism, like for example with Viktor Orban in Hungary, and also with the Iranian fascist regime. So how do you look at the establishment of this alliance to the continuation of the ongoing war in Ukraine?
Is it a question to me or to Jerry? I will be shortly. So how they originally do the same scenario in every country. So they form alliance, sometimes in fundraising efforts, sometimes where their TV channels and trolls help some politicians. But why they do that? So firstly, they vote in parliament decisions which they need, for example, in energy issues, right? Secondly, they use these parliamentary people. I think that they usually have compromise also to these people. I don't know, like they invite them to nice party on yacht with nice girls, and they have compromise to that. It's very KGB stuff, and they use it. And they move these people also to block aid in like European Parliament and take part in this disinformation campaign. Because one more time, interview with Tucker Carlson originally was not to like Americans, not only, but also to local voter. And third, it's also hybrid stuff, for example, like religious cooperation. So, and it's pretty effective because when Fico come to parliament, it's not so big like big win in Slovakia, but still it was, maybe Jerry can add something something about like also church cooperation, because they use this message in European elections, conservative values.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they have friends, especially in Serbia, Slovakia, and a couple of other places that have opposing Orthodox churches that are strong.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, did you have anything?
Yeah, I've got one.
And anyone
this
else,
would
raise your
probably
hand
be
and I'll put you on the
either
list.
or both of you, but what's the feedback loop? So how does Putin or the regime, like, especially I'm thinking internal to Russia, know if the messaging is working, whether it's the religious related messaging or other things like, is it, here in the US we do polling, public opinion, is there something synonymous that they use to see if their message is resonating with their internal population?
Can I answer? I work in campaign management, so I think one more time, Putin, it's person who haven't Western education and he can't understand deeply, like, is this report, it's real report or it just looks like report. So I think they also show to Putin firstly sociological reports and like опросы in these countries. Secondly, they show that, okay, we publish 1,000 publication in Western media. So how much you do? I publish 1,000 publications. So then we use 1 million of trolls and we share like 500,000 posts in social media. And I think it's also they do all this visualization and so on and so forth. Because before, as I understand, about my native region, they show to Putin why he invade. Because some people on southern Ukraine and western Ukraine vote for like pro-Russian political wars. one more time, Soviet Union nostalgia and direct money to voters, $15 to voter, and they vote for political force. But they show to Putin that these people vote for these political parties because they like Putin as a leader. And they appellate that in some research, people see Stalin as, good type of leader. Some people still had that before war, and that's why I think that it's also one more time about money. Putin don't understand that, but he give a lot of budget for that, even if they Tucker Carlson interview. Is it good tool? I think for Putin it was sell tremendous good tool. And the same journalist, I don't remember his surname, who published books in Germany about Putin, 2 books. It's very big issue. Jerry, what do you think?
I would just say he doesn't care anyway. He's in control.
Right.
And the same is true of Kirill. They're in control. I mean, there is even a ecclesiological argument about this amongst Eastern Orthodox about the excessive control of the bishops in the whole church. What one major theologian in Eastern Orthodoxy calls episcopolatry. That is idolatry about the bishops. They're the ones who know everything, and you defer to them all the time. So basically, it doesn't make any difference as long as you can put your major bishops in Alexandria or in Rhodesia, South Africa, or someplace like that. Then you won the game for there. And then you have this whole spin-off of all the propaganda values that you can create from that. So sorry.
Can I add something? It is not question. So one of them mentioned disinformation in Copenhagen, another is church, but no one mentioned criminal groups also, and oligarchs, local oligarchs and criminal groups. They also very supportive to Russia in different countries. Different ways. Moldova is very showing place where oligarchs work for Russia, and of course supported with local criminal groups. And other countries.
Bulgaria also.
Yeah, again, so it's everything together. Church, disinformation, criminal groups.
So originally Vary v Zakonie, it's very, very rich criminal groups, Vary v Zakonie. They some of them move firstly to Georgia, and then they move to some European Union, but it's people with tremendous number of cash. And of course they can support these campaigns.
Did you have a question?
So we're talking about sort of these cultural appeals that Russia is making with different countries, which are sort of also kind of embracing, or different countries, different groups, which are also sort of embracing this sort of far right, very conservative, we could say fascist in some instances, methodology. And I'm curious on the religious end of that, if Kirill is also making these outreaches, and if he is, how do you negotiate the religious differences if you are the Eastern Orthodox Church, for example, making an appeal to, the very conservative religious people in, let's say, some parts of Eastern Europe where they're Catholic? There's a big religious difference there in some instances, or even in America, you're dealing with evangelical Protestant Christians, which is almost a totally different animal. How do you navigate, if you're Kirill, those ecclesiastical differences?
He doesn't do it directly so much, although he's in contact with all of the friendly bishops all over the world. He talks to the Archbishop of Canterbury, regularly. Not that they agree with him, but he keeps warm relations, as they would see it. If you look at the website of the Moscow Patriarchate, every other article is His Holiness Patriarch Kirill sends birthday greetings to the Archbishop of so-and-so. And they have all of this social networking that goes on, but there's very serious tension for most of them. So they spread their bishops around, and they have United States, there's a branch of the Russian Orthodox Church in the United States, Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, which is having trouble with the Russian Orthodox Church, but they're under the control of Kirill. So, they just have an international network. They know their friends and they know their enemies, and they're creating enemies along the way. Anybody who's against the Ukrainian Orthodox Church that was part of the Moscow Patriarchate is their enemy nowadays. You know, they just have this big network and work on it. They have placed fantastic. One thing that happened from 1991, and this is Kirill's, you know, thing. They became a fantastically rich church. They were nothing in 1991. I mean, I remember talking to a bishop that I knew quite well. He says, you know, it's just, I got this whole diocese and it's just ruins, you know, and it was. All the churches were used for something else. I mean, it's really a magnificent feat that he's completed in the last 30 years. And it's a global institution now, fully cognizant with all the politics of international affairs, and they're smart people. So I just want to say one thing. One part of my paper that I didn't talk about refers to one of their leaders, most important leaders, Metropolitan Ilarion, who was in the External Church Relations Department and headed it for years. But then, in the middle of the first year of the war, exited, and is now the head of the Orthodox Church in Hungary, which is about 12 parishes or something like this. I mean, it's ridiculous. And yet he's still talking with Kirill, and his writing is still on the Moscow Patriarchal website, and you say, what's going on here? And there's two explanations. One, he's just getting out of the fray, so when Kirill kicks off, Hilarion can take over. That's one theory. But if you look at what Hilarion has written himself, he really stated a position of conscience. He didn't go full bore for violent invasion, ever. Kirill took about 2 weeks before he was all in, but Hilarion didn't. And so in June of 22, he was moved, and they now have a new head of that department. But his writings are anti-Ukrainian in many ways. It's really weird, you know, it's a strange situation, but I think there are some people who have consciences. About 100 and some priests have been defrocked because they spoke out, or they did a real simple thing. In the liturgy, Kirill said you have to insert this prayer in the liturgy for victory of Russian forces. And a handful of priests said, I don't want to pray for victory, I'll pray for peace. So they inserted peace for Russia